Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. If you are watching this live, fantastic. If not, that's also fine. I hope that you'll learn a lot today. I am the CTO of VUI agency, and today I'll be discussing basically setting up your first Alexa skill, and then after setting it up and maybe testing it and finding out what kind of systems we use for Alexa. So Alexa is one of the systems that we use. It's the voice assistant from Amazon, and you can talk to Alexa on all the Amazon Echo devices, Amazon Show devices, but not only on the Amazon devices, it's also integrated into services like your BMW or your washing machine. They're major brands that are also incorporating or putting Alexa into their hardware. And today we'll be discussing how we can maybe use this technology or what is behind this technology, how we set this technology up. So just briefly about me. I am the CTO at VUI agency, and we are an agency that is focused on voice and voice design and voice development. This is an area that is going to be more prominent in the future as more and more companies start adapting or adopting voice for their services. And so we actually design the logic and the concepts of what Alexa should say or what Alexa should do. And today, this talk will be a bit technical, but will be kind of what I hope that you take with is how we utilize certain technology in the background to create a great voice experience. So what I'll be doing is today, the first thing that we'll be doing, for those that have already been to Amazon workshops or Amazon hackathons, it might be a bit redundant, the things that I'll show you today, but maybe it might be a good refresher as well. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is, on the right, you'll always see the links of the pages that we'll be looking at and that we'll be using. To get started, if you've never ever created an Alexa skill before, by the way, if you do have any questions at any time, I am also monitoring, or we are also monitoring the Slack channel, and we'll basically use Slack to get your feedback. And if you have a question at any time, just ask, and we'll try to answer it as we go along. So to get things started, the very first thing that you need to do when we start developing for Amazon or for Amazon Alexa is getting an account at Amazon Web Services. You'll get a free year of hosting if you sign up. You won't have to pay a thing. And Amazon Alexa or Amazon AWS will basically look like this. This is if you go to www.amazon.com. This is the front page of Amazon Web Services. You can essentially host your skill anywhere where you want. You can host it on your own computer at home. You can host it on any other service, Azure, any other cloud provider. But what we'll be doing is we'll be specifically using Amazon because the data centers are all in one, and the Alexa service, if you really want a quick interaction with Alexa, it makes sense hosting your skill or the functionality of what Alexa should do inside the Amazon cloud. So if you go to aws.amazon.com, this is the Amazon Web Services. This is where you can set up an Alexa skill. Now, at first, it might be a bit scary if you look at all these services, but you really don't have to worry about any of these services. The only service that is important is something called AWS Lambda. So just ignore all the other services. Those are all great things that you can explore in the future. They help companies build, they actually run, lots of companies run these services behind the scenes, and they range from everything from storage to database solutions to artificial intelligence, and it's quite interesting if you get your hands dirty diving into some of these other technologies that you'll see. But what we'll be focusing on is something called Lambda. And the reason we'll be focusing on Lambda is, on the one side, you don't want to specifically want to manage a server. I'm pretty sure that some of the teams do not have the skills to necessarily have to set up server environments. And what Amazon has basically done with Lambda is they've taken out all that stress of setting up a server, assigning it, like in those days, you had to set up different boxes and things like that. You don't have to do that. Instead, what Amazon does for you is they allow you to basically just insert your code, whatever that code might be, and it's called a function, and you can just upload your code. So if I start with I'm just going to quickly show you. Let me just choose an existing role. Test 2. Basically, what you see here is my function code. This is JavaScript. You can choose any other code that you might like. You can also use Python. You can also use Java. You can also use C. And the idea is that your code or your logic for your function goes in here, and everything else, all the hosting, all the scalability, if you have 1 million users using your skill, you don't have to worry about that because Amazon takes care of that. In the past, it was quite a mission, setting up systems that are scalable, that can handle lots and lots of requests. But you also needed the manpower and the knowledge to set up these systems. And so Amazon has basically eliminated this. And what we'll be using is we'll be using this Lambda, and we'll be just focusing on the functionality of what Alexa should do when you do ask her a certain question. So this is the first part. This is the Amazon Web Services. So get an account there. The second thing that you need to get an account at is the Amazon Developer Portal. The Amazon Developer Portal. So while we host our skill in AWS, we still need to somehow connect it to the Alexa service. These are two different things. And the Alexa service, essentially, if you go to developer.amazon.com, looks like this. This is not only for Alexa, it also allows you to create apps for Fire TV and the rest, but we will be focusing on Alexa. And to get to your Alexa screen, you'll click on Alexa at the top here, and you'll basically click on Alexa Skill Kit. Just a quick note to these two. So the Alexa Skill Kit is the logic behind Alexa. So this is basically the brain of Alexa, while the Alexa voice service is for providers that want to use Alexa in their hardware. So if we have other speakers, or if we have Bosch or Siemens wanting to integrate it into their washing machines, they will use the Alexa service, and they will put in a microphone and the hardware needed, and then that, whatever the microphone hears, will get sent to the Alexa service and get interpreted by Amazon. But what happens on the other side, or basically the functionality and the logic, is in the Alexa Skill Kit. And today, what we will be looking at is the Alexa Skill Kit. So maybe to get started with our very first skill, what Amazon proposes there is a skill called the fact skill. This skill is a skill where you can, by the way, skills are kind of like apps. So if you are used to the smartphone terminology where you have an app, if we talk about skills, skills are apps for Alexa. That's essentially the terminology here. And so if we want to create a new app, we can go in here and we can click on Add New Skill. This is basically the first screen of our skill, and this is where we can set up whatever we want. So now if we do create a skill about TechChallenge, we want to find out, if we now use the fact skill, we want to find out facts about TechChallenge. We have to give it a name. So I'm just going to give it TechChallenge as the name. And then we have something called an invocation name. So the invocation name is basically the name that you use when you want to open this app or this skill. So this is what, when you want to use it on Alexa, you have to say open and then your invocation name. And for this example, what we can do is we can just say, okay, we want to call it TechChallenge. There are some requirements to this, which might be important later on. But in the beginning, you don't actually need to worry too much about this. And this is essentially if you are submitting it to the store, and if you do want other users to use it, you do have to adhere to certain requirements, and you can't use trademarks, and you can't use one word, you would have to use 2 words. So these are kind of requirements, but for the testing period, it doesn't, while you're testing your skill, while you're creating your skill, it doesn't actually matter. So, so just type in the invocation name. At the top here, I haven't done a lot. I have just selected the custom interaction model. These other things, they might become more interesting later. If you're creating a service which provides videos, you will use the video skill API. If you are creating a service for lamps and for IoT devices, you'll use the smart home skill API. And this is for publishers that just want to submit their news as an RSS feed that will get read by Alexa. So just at this time, just always use the custom interaction model, unless for those teams that are doing more IoT stuff, we might at a later stage look at the smart home skill API. Down here, if your skill is going to play audio for some reason, and when we talk about audio, we're talking about MP3s. We are talking about audio that is longer than a few seconds, then basically select your audio player. And if your skill is a video app, then select the video app. But other than that, you don't have to do anything here at this time. So you can basically just press save, and we can go on to the next screen. On this screen, what you'll basically see is this is the interaction model screen. With the interaction model, we define what interactions Alexa will have with human beings, with people, and what Alexa should listen to, because Alexa will not recognize just by doing nothing what the request will be. We have to pre-train what Alexa should listen to, and the idea with Alexa is that we will train her using the interaction model and the skill builder, and we will basically enter all the combinations that Alexa will or can hear when she does listen to the request, or if a person does speak to her. And we basically need to do this with the skill builder. So we can just go ahead and we can click on the Alexa Skill Kit Builder. And what you already see is on the left here, it already has a few intents. Intents are things that we want Alexa to do. So if we now have our TechChallenge skill and we want it to tell us about XYZ, or give us a bit more info about TechChallenge, then that will be an intent. So if we say, Alexa, open TechChallenge and give me the list of participants, then getting the list of participants would be one of the intents. If we say, Alexa, open TechChallenge and tell me when the next event is, then the intent would be, I would want to hear the next event. And so what we can do with these intents is we can add new intents, and we have to basically train Alexa how to go about figuring out what the user actually wants to do. Because at the moment, what you can see is you can see 3 intents. These intents always have to be there. So a user always has to be able to cancel an action, and a user always has to be able to ask for help, and the user always has to be able to stop your program or your skill. And so what we can now do is we can just go here and we can add more intents. We can, for instance, say, if this is the TechChallenge example, we can say we want to find out next event. So we'll just call this next event or next workshop. And now we have this intent down here. And in this intent, if I click on it, you'll see this window called the sample utterance window. These sample utterances we need to enter because Alexa will not by default know how to listen or how to assign what users say to our next workshop. So we have to add this into the sample utterances. So we can add maybe when is the next workshop? What time is the next workshop? How long should I wait for the next workshop? And the idea is that you create as many different variations how people could ask for the next workshop. What's the next workshop? And what we would recommend in this stage, and we're not going to cover the design part today. I'm just going to quickly just run you through how to set up these utterances. Christoph, in the next week, or in 2 weeks, we'll probably talk about the how to design the best interaction that we have. At this moment, I would just say try and get as many. A good design is basically if you can get 30 sample utterances in there, because then you'll be training Alexa with a lot of data, and depending on how many interactions or intents you have to be more specific. And there might be things like you want to say next workshop, previous workshop, and you need to make sure that Alexa understands the right utterances. So that's why we're typing them in here. And so we can save this model. We can add another intent called the more info maybe. This intent might maybe be an intent where you want to find out more info about TechChallenge. So you can say, what is TechChallenge? Give me more information. I want to find out more. Give me more info. Okay, so I've added a few. So these are our two intents, and your skill or your application will have many of these. And for every one of these, you have to make sure that the utterances are correct. Then you can click here and you can build the model. And this is what Amazon does in the background. So Amazon provides all the machine learning and all the rest needed to train Alexa to listen to certain intents and certain to basically do the classification of what you want to achieve with a certain intent. Once your model is built, you can go to configuration. Okay. Let me just take one step back before we do that. You can also import and export what we've basically set up. So your entire model, your entire intent model can be imported and exported. And so what we are going to use is a tool called the Skillinator. Skillinator can take a model like this, and we can just say, copy this, and we can paste this into the Skillinator here. So the website is called skillinator.io. And what this will do is it will actually generate the code or a boilerplate code for your Lambda function. So you don't actually have to code that much when it comes to setting up these intents. Depending on how complex your skills are going to get, this will not necessarily suffice. This is just to get you started. And what this just does is it takes the interaction model and it creates the Lambda template. So with this, and I'll show you just now how it'll go ahead. we will create our Lambda function. So on the next screen. So we've gone from skill information, which was the invocation name and the name of the skill, to the interaction model, which is what we trained Alexa with. Now we're on the configuration page. And this configuration page allows us to configure where Alexa, this is basically like pointing Alexa in the right direction if a person says open TechChallenge. So if I say open TechChallenge, I want it to go to my server. And this is where you can select HTTPS and you can put in your server address if you have that. If not, you can specify an endpoint, which is something that we're going to do, and that I'm going to show you. It's very easy. It's not that complicated. So what we're going to do here is we're basically going back to AWS. So we're going from developer.amazon.com to AWS. And now we are going to be setting up our first Lambda function. To get you started quite quickly, what you can do is there are already pre-configured Lambda functions. I'll show you now once it loads. By the way, good resources for everybody that wants to get into this topic and look at the actual code and do some of the tutorials. GitHub is very, very good, and the Alexa community, and not only the Alexa group, the team that leads Alexa is constantly updating these skills, and these are all templates that you can use and that you can set up and that you can play around with, because you don't necessarily have to start from scratch. And so one of the ones that I would recommend you to look at first would be the fact skill. And you can basically follow this guide down here. Just click on get started and then follow this guide, and it will show you what I'm currently doing now, how to set up the skill, how to create a Lambda function, how to enable it. So if you have any questions, just let me know, but this would be, and for every skill, this would be like a tutorial that you could go through in order to learn how to set up these skills. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be creating a new function. What I mean with the blueprints or skills that you can already use is if I type in Alexa and I press enter, you'll see that down here we've already got the fact skill. So there are two ways that you can use or that you can go about setting up this fact skill. You can either download it on your computer and then upload it to Lambda, or you can directly just select this. And I've just selected it, test 3. I'm just going to, just for demonstration purposes. So when you create this skill, I always mix this up. So when you create the skill, just give it a name, choose a role. Amazon predefines this or presets this up for you. And you'll see down here, this is the code that the skill uses. So this is already code that's in there, and you can just basically click on create function to create a skill like this. And as you can see, so here we have our function. This is what it does. So this is a fact skill. It'll give you facts about the universe. And you can just fill in these different facts, press save, and it will update your skill. But what we did here is we set up our own intents and our own interaction model. So what we'll actually have to do is use what we got from Skillinator. And maybe let me just set it up with the correct name. Don't use test 1, 2, 3. It's not great. So what I would advise you to do is just type in Alexa, go to the fact skill, and we're calling this the TechChallenge skill. Choosing an existing role, this is already set up in the beginning. If you have any issues with this, you can just follow the tutorial on the fact skill. It'll go through and show you how to set up your Lambda function on this page, as you can see here. It'll run you through doing the roles, and you don't need to worry. I've got this already set up, and I'm just going to hit create, even though we've got the wrong code here. I can't actually replace this code. But what I can now do in here, I can go in and I can edit the code. So I can go do that and paste my code. Paste that code that I got from the Skillinator. Down here, you don't need to worry about this at this moment. These are just optimizations. If your skill is taking too long to respond, you can set certain variables here, but you don't need to worry about that. The main thing that you need to worry about is your code in here. Your code in here and using the right Node.js version 6.10 and not Python or any other code. Now you can just press save and test. Now, when it comes to testing, this is the code, this is the logic behind the function that you have, or behind your Amazon function, your Alexa function. And what we can do, and what Amazon has done, is they've created templates for testing your function. So if you want to test if it basically starts, then you can go into the event template. You can say, I want to test Alexa start session. And you have to give it a name. And this is basically the request. So if a person says open TechChallenge, then Alexa will send something similar to this to your code, or will open your code with these parameters. And all that this is just to see what your function does and if it does respond correctly. I'm just going to click create here. And then we can click on test again. And what you see at the top here is you'll see what has happened. It will say, okay, the execution has been correct. And what you can see here is what your function is returning. So the way that Alexa works is that it'll try and interpret what the user said. It'll go and send what the user said to your function, and your function will then have to do something with this and send a response back to Alexa. And in this case, it's going to send, this is a placeholder message. This skill includes 5 intents. Try one of your intents or your intent utterances to test the skill. And that is what we are going to be doing now. So what we've done is we've set up the hosting, and in order to connect the AWS and the hosting to our developer portal, we have to put in an address here. And this address you can get from the top here. This is called the ARN number. Every function that you create has an ARN number. It's an internal address. It's like a URL. It's just an identifier to identify your function. And we can copy this and we can paste it in here. And this tells Amazon, and you have to be sure that you select AWS Lambda ARN. It won't work if you use HTTPS. And this basically tells Amazon where to send the request to if a user says something. The other thing that you do need to also do is you need to tell your function what can trigger it. And in this case, so we've got the configuration on the one side, which is your code. The trigger is down here, and we just have to add from this list the Alexa skill kit. This is just a permission thing. Okay, let me just see if this, maybe it's already linked. So I've added my address, and you can also set up multiple different functions for different regions just to enable Alexa to be faster, but we don't need this in this case. And I'm just going to save this. And as you can see, it has successfully updated my skill. And if we click on next, we can actually go through to the testing. So we've gone from the information to the interaction model to configuring where our logic is or our endpoint is, which is here, to testing. Very important, if you do test, just make sure that it is enabled. That is one of the things that tends to be an issue, that people do not enable the skill. We can, at this stage already now, if you have an Alexa device, we can at this stage already now enable the skill and test it out. So I do have an Alexa in front of me. Just going to see on another account if I just have to enable it. And so now if I ask Alexa, open TechChallenge.
Hello.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, open TechChallenge. Open TechChallenge.
Hello.
Okay, so at the moment it just says hello. Let's see if that makes sense.
This is a placeholder response for the intent named intro intent. This intent has one slot, which is custom. Anything else?
That would be it.
This is a placeholder response.
Alexa, stop. Okay, so essentially what you saw here in our testing, when we ran this test, this is a placeholder response. That is what Alexa was reading. And you can test this down here. If we say hi, or if we say hello, then, and we ask TechChallenge, you can see that it gives us this. So this is what Alexa sends to our function, and this is the response that it gets from our function. And what you can now actually do is you can go down here into the code that is in this window here, and you can change this as a placeholder response. You can say something like, hello, welcome to the TechChallenge. Let's go. I will answer all of your questions. And we can save this. To save it at the top, you always have to save. It's good that you always execute a test so you can see what happens. So as you can see, our test is executing and she'll say this. So if we now test it, Alexa, open TechChallenge.
Hello.
Hi.
This is a placeholder response for the intent named intro intent. This intent has one slot, which is custom. Anything else?
No. Let's just see what.
This is a placeholder response.
Alexa, stop. Okay. Let's just see. So what might have happened is that we might have selected another skill. Let me just see if this.
This intent has no slots. Anything else?
No. So what you can also do is you can also test your skill. If you don't have an Alexa and you are going to get Alexas to test with, you can also just use the web interface to read the response that comes from Alexa. So if I click on listen here.
This is a placeholder response for the intent named more info. This intent has no slots. Anything else?
Okay, and so let me just see if we can say TechChallenge. So now we want to connect it to what we actually wanted to here. Let me just see if it's. I actually have to just, you have to open. Hi. This is a placeholder, okay. So what you would have to do is you would have to go in here and you would have to change all of these. This is the more info. So we can say, what questions do you have? And we can go down to the, more info was about, if we remember, it was what is TechChallenge about? So we can do TechChallenge is a program that where students come up with innovative projects and products. this is just a one sentence about the program. What we can also do is the next workshop. We can say next workshop will be the next workshop will be on Git. Do that. Will be on Git at 2 p.m. tomorrow or on Friday. And just save this again. Alexa, open TechChallenge.
Hello.
Hi.
This is a placeholder response for the intent named intro intent.
Okay,
This
Alexa,
intent
stop.
has one slot, which is custom. Anything else?
Alexa, stop. Let's see this. Okay.
TechChallenge is a program where students come up with innovative projects and products.
Okay. And so if we say, when is the next workshop?
The next workshop will be on Git at 2 p.m. on Friday.
Okay. So I just want to see if I can, because I think we might have already had a test function for this presentation today. So I'm just going to be calling it TechChallenge info. You can change your invocation name and press save. If you do change your invocation name, you do always have to update the model as well. So don't forget about that. So I've just changed the name. I can press save. I can rebuild the model. And so now if we test this again, Alexa, open TechChallenge info.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Okay, so it is still building the model. That's what you can see here. And that takes about 20 seconds or so. And now we can say, Alexa, open TechChallenge info. Alexa, open TechChallenge info.
Hello, welcome to the TechChallenge skill. I will answer all of your questions.
What is TechChallenge?
TechChallenge is a program where students come up with innovative projects and products.
When is the next workshop?
The next workshop will be on Git at 2 p.m. on Friday.
Thank you.
TechChallenge is a
Alexa,
program where
stop.
students...
Okay, and so basically what we've now done very, very simply is we've come up with our model, the things that we want to ask Alexa, and we've put this into the Skillinator, come up with the code, and we've now just changed whatever Alexa says, whatever the output is. This is basically a hello world example of how to come up with your first skill, and I hope you kind of get an idea of how we set up a skill. This is very good in the very beginning for prototyping, for finding out what works. We would really urge you also, if you do go out and if you are testing certain environments or certain use cases, just to maybe quickly set up an Alexa skill, get the code, put it in here, and then test and see if it works. This is one of the things that we urge you to do. Now, I'm just looking at the time, and we have 20 minutes left. What I will maybe do is we will split up this talk because we might be running out of time. But I will maybe already start with Git, so you already have an understanding of how Git works. And then next, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be talking about how we, instead of putting in our code all the time here, because this is not a very efficient way of coding. If you do have multiple teams and if you do have multiple people coding on the same skill, this is not great. Also, if you do want to have bigger skills at do a lot more. And if you want to split this up into multiple files, if you're using external libraries, Amazon will not show the code for you if you are doing that. So if I go to my other Lambda functions that have been deployed here, you'll see that the demo fact skill, if I click on it, will say this function contains external libraries. Uploading a new file will override these libraries. So I can't actually change the code in this interface. And what we'll be covering in 2 weeks' time is how to go about that we can still utilize this and have a way that we can still edit our functions, but we do not necessarily have to copy paste everything in here, and we can then also start using external libraries. And so for those teams that are at the moment trying to see, so this is great. This is what I would urge you to look at in the first part. Going further, I would also just urge you to look at the other examples that we have here. But if you are starting to come up with your product, and if you are starting to set it up in such a way that it should be reusable and it should be maintainable, then we need to start looking at something like Git. And that is maybe something that I'll be touching on. If I don't know how many of you do have experience with Git, but for those coders under us or amongst us, what Git does is it allows us to check in code, to share our updates. And I can basically show you an example here. So in our company, we are using Bitbucket. This is one of the programs, or one of the sites that one of the services that we utilize to store all our code. The reason we use Bitbucket is because you can create private repositories. Repositories are where you keep your code without having to pay a lot. That's one of the reasons, but also because of the functionality. So you have things like I can click on source, and I can click on any file in my repo. This is just an example repo. So if I go to functions, fact skill, and source code here, if I click on my index function, I can just click here on edit, and I can still edit this online, or I can give people that do not necessarily need to code on their computer, or that just need to fill in information like this. I can give people access, and they can directly edit that and save it and commit that. So that's what we use. We use Bitbucket. And so what I urge you to do, if you do set up a new project or your program, is to go to bitbucket.com, get an account. So up until now, we've got Amazon Web Services. You need to get an account there. The Amazon Developer Portal, you need to get an account there, and bitbucket.org. And if you do go to bitbucket.org, you can click on the plus here, and you can create something called, if you already have a team, or if you don't have a team, you can create a team, and you can invite other team members into that team so they can also edit the same code, but you'll essentially create a repository, and you'll give it a name. You can call it TechChallenge, or your team name. And we can now click on create private repository. And now we've already created kind of this folder where you can commit code to. In Bitbucket, what I also urge you to do is to look at something called source tree. Source tree. Source tree is a user interface that allows you to track changes and to see what has happened from one version to the next. And source tree is also from Atlassian, the same company that creates Bitbucket. So they do work quite well. You basically just install it and you log in to your Bitbucket. So you can see here, integrate source tree with Bitbucket. But you just basically download it, install it. And now if I click on the bottom here, you just see it's not quite loaded. Okay, now it's loaded. It's just extracting. And I can show you the source tree app. Just opening the app quickly. See if this works. Then you'll land up on the page like this. I think Windows users will see the same. This is basically the Mac version for Source Tree. You click here, and then it'll ask you to log in. This is your Bitbucket account, by the way. So you can go use an existing account to see if my account is already here. It's not. I'm just going to use the demo account. Once it loads, if it does load, not quite what's happening. Can't click around here. Maybe cancel. Let's try again. Interesting. My account. Shouldn't actually happen. Let's see if we can log in via this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my demo account if I can find it. Okay. Putting in my name here. I think Source Tree is free. You don't have to pay for Source Tree. So you don't need to worry about this. I'm just a bit confused why this is not wanting to log in. That's the only thing. Try again, one last time. I might check after this presentation what has gone wrong, why I can't log in. Fascinating. Okay, so maybe next time I'll show you once I've logged in. It is usually not an issue. And in that program basically allows you to look at the code, to update the code, to change the code, to review the code. And once you've set up your repo, you can go ahead and it will tell you the easiest way to get started is maybe to create a README, or you can set it up on your computer. So I'm just going to create a README. And you can basically fill in all this information. I'm just going to add this is the TechChallenge skill and press commit. And now I've essentially done the first change. And if you click on source code, you'll see that the file README has got this info now. Good. And if you do want to add a new file, so we have our index dot yes. You can go to our Lambda function. Let's just go back. And we can go to TechChallenge. We can copy all of this code. And we can paste it in here. We can click on commit. And what we've now done is we've put in our first version of the code that I was using for Alexa. And you'll see now that in in our repository, we have two files. We have a README file, and we have an index.js file. And now your team can actually go in here and they can go and edit, and they can go in here and they can say, okay, I don't want to call it welcome to the Tech Challenge skill. I want to say, hooray, or yippee. I'm happy to hear from you. Welcome to the Tech Challenge skill. I'll answer all of your questions, and you can click on commit. And now what we are doing is we are changing a certain line in the file, and this is one of the beauties of Git, is that you can go in here and you can see what has changed, and we can do this for every single thing. So if we click on the commit tab here on the side, we can see what has happened from the very beginning. So we can see in the beginning we created this, then we edited this online, then we created the index.js, then we edited the index.js. And if you do want to see what has happened, you can just click on commit, and you can click on this link here, and you can see what was changed, and this really helps us figuring out what has happened. At this time, what you would have to do now is you would basically have to go here, and you would have to copy this. Click on, not that. If you click on raw, you can copy this, paste this into here, press save. This is only for the moment. Later on, and this is in 2 weeks' time, I'll show you how we automate it. So the minute you basically make a change here and you press commit, it will automatically update it on Lambda. And this is taking us one step further to the goal of setting it up in a way that it's maintainable, that bigger teams can work on it, and that we can actually use it in the industry. So now if I do Alexa open Tech Challenge.
Hello.
Alexa stop. Alexa open Tech Challenge info.
Yippee, I'm happy to hear from you. Welcome to the Tech Challenge skill. I will answer all of your questions.
Okay, when is the next workshop?
The next workshop will be on Git at 2 p.m. on Friday.
Okay, so now I'm just going to commit that.
Tech Challenge is a program where students come up with innovative...
So I just changed that. I updated this change. Going back in here. Clicking on raw and pasting it here. And if you do now add new intents, you always have to go back to your Alexa skill, and you can add a new intent here. And you would have to retrain the model and add it back to the skillinator, get the code, put it in your Lambda function, and so on and so forth. So this is the first kind of version. Just see if it updated now. Alexa open Tech Challenge info.
Yippee, I'm happy to hear from you. Welcome to the Tech Challenge skill.
Alexa,
I will answer.
And so this is kind of this is kind of in 1 hour showing you how to quickly get running with all the software that we're using. In the past, and this is before we had Lambda, before we had these functions, it was a real pain to set up these systems. But this is one of the benefits of innovation and technology, is that you now, even though you don't have to necessarily know everything inside out, you only have to be able to code in JavaScript, and then you can essentially create whatever you want to create. So what we'll be doing in 2 weeks' time is we'll be looking at how to automate from Bitbucket, that Bitbucket automatically deploys to Lambda. Then we'll be looking at how to do testing on your skill, how we test the functionality so that when you add new functionality, that old functionality doesn't break. So this is great at the top here. But the issue is that if you have multiple people working on this, you don't actually know if one of the things that people were doing is going to break your skill. And so we'll be trying to do the testing externally. And then I think that's going to be kind of the next week's session. And then along the way, we'll also have a session on design and what contributes to good design, what are the concepts of design, and how to set up design in such a way that the user is never lost. The user always knows what needs to be done next, and Christoph will cover that. So I hope today you will take with just the basic concepts of setting this up. This is not essentially the trickiest thing to do. I hope you saw that, and I hope with the tools, just try it out. Go ahead, set up your intent model. Take your intent model, put it in the Skillinator, put it in the AWS Lambda function, test it, get it linked up, and also go to the testing interface here, see if it's working. And once you get this workflow going, you already are about 40 or 50% of the pain of the understanding how this technology works is already done. There's still a lot that you need to take care of. There's still a lot of things like the logic, like the voice design, but this is to get you started. And so if you do have any questions about this talk, yeah, leave a message or send me a message on Slack. You can also ask your questions in the channel. We have now, I think, set up different team rooms. So in those team rooms, you can also ask those questions. And I hope that today you'll just take with how easy it is to set up a simple Lambda function. And we will go more in depth in 2 weeks' time. Great. That concludes our session for today. And yeah, as I look forward to hearing from all the teams in the planning sessions and the review sessions. And I think the ideas are great. There are many great. Some of the teams might have to maybe change their ideas as they go along, because they might find out that it is maybe a bit too complex. But yeah, we are really excited to be working with you guys on these issues. And yeah, good. Let me know if there's anything else. Okay. Otherwise, enjoy your Friday and enjoy your weekend, and we'll hear next week Friday for the review sessions. Okay, good. Bye.